this is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast. Start giving people 3 quotes.
Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
The options with battery power are getting ridiculously expensive.
Yep.
But the other thing is, if you, and going back to business talk more than tool talk, and it's obviously it applies to the tool talk. If you're looking at the type of work that you have, and for people that are trying to put this together, Hamilton in North Island of New Zealand.
Yep.
You've got a mix of old suburbs, new subdivisions where they're 300, 400 square metre properties or 500 square metre properties with hardly any work to do. Through to older subdivisions where there's probably 500 or 600 metres of actual lawn.
So a lot of our new stuff is like high density. You're looking at like 100 square metre lawns.
Yeah, if that.
That's it. Like 100 square metres. Under that, I mean, one I did today, it's got to be like 30 square metres.
Yeah.
But then I'm sort of like, I'm right on the edge. So I've got brand, like you literally go a minute, 2 minutes that way, and I've got high density, small stuff, and I've also got some bigger ones that are like 200-300 square metres of lawn, and then I go like 5 minutes that way.
Yeah.
And I've got a mix of some real small stuff, but then I've got like 500 square metre lawns, which are big open ones, and that's when I can really make use of the stander.
Yeah.
And I try and put it on whatever lawn I can fit it on.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So put the biggest mower on the smallest lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go that way.
But I guess typical jobs you're doing at the moment, you've got those jobs to work within, right? So if it's above 100 square meters, you're making a significant benefit from having a 32-inch mower. If it's under 100 square meters, it's probably not making a benefit having a 32-inch mower over the 21.
No, not at all. Even some of those ones where you're looking at like 200 square meters or 250 square meters, sometimes the 32 doesn't really save you any time or anything. It might save you a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
But you're still about the same time because it's just fiddly.
I'm guessing it makes a difference if you're catching versus mulching too.
Yes. Side discharge or mulch.
Side discharge or mulch, no catching?
Generally not. I've got a couple of lawns that I catch on the push mower now.
Yeah.
If they're catch, I think I've got one lawn that I take some clippings from, and it's that small one just down the road.
Okay.
If they want a court lawn, generally they either provide me a place to dump the clippings, or I push the price right up. Just time and money. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I've got to make green waste trips. I need to cover the cost.
I've done the same thing. For most of my work that I've done residential, it's a case of I don't want to catch the grass. So if I'm going to catch the grass, I've either got to have a green bin or somewhere to dump the grass, or I'm going to charge like twice as much money because I'm going to have to account for the time afterwards to get rid of the green waste.
Yep, 100%. That was I think it was last summer I made that sort of switch.
Yeah.
I told half the customers I just switched, and they didn't actually know.
Yep. Talking to a lot of people, I think the general consensus is if you're catching a lot of grass, then you'd set your trailer up so that you can hold a lot of clippings and you get through the whole day, or even a lot of people seem to get through 3 or 4 days, even up to a week or two in winter before they dump their clippings. And I'm like, that's going to rot the trailer out if you got clippings sitting in there for more than half a day.
So what I would, because when I started out, I was mainly running out of the van with no trailer as well.
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to target small I was like, electric mower, I've got a lot of new stuff coming up around me, I'll target small properties.
Yep.
But then, of course, I ended up getting bigger properties as well.
Yeah.
So,
More batteries.
but I would just run out of the van. I'd take a couple of green waste bags with me, a couple of or fadges, as we call them here, like your wool sacks.
Oh, yep.
Old second-hand wool sacks you buy from Bunnings.
Yep.
New Zealand's got a lot of those.
Cue the sheep jacks.
Yeah. But I was finding to get the green waste, I'd be sort of like two bags a day.
Yeah.
Even 2.5
Yep.
wool bags a day of clippings.
Yep.
That's
taking up a fair bit of space in the back of the van.
Yeah, but when you've got no back seat, like the back seats are folded up, you've just got a mower, batteries, and a trimmer and a blower. You don't need a lot of room in there.
Yeah, fair.
But on a wet day, it wasn't much fun.
No.
Yeah. And so what would happen is I would get to about halfway through the week, and I go, I've got to get rid of the green waste bags that are sitting beside the house. So I'd have to finish early, clear out the back of the van, put a whole lot of green waste bags into the van, and of course they've been sitting there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So grass that's a couple of days, wet grass that's a couple of days old is doesn't exactly smell the best sometimes. So you're driving to the greenhouse, the windows down.
Yep.
So that's just time, and then it will say like you might as well say a half hour to an hour round trip to the green waste.
Yeah.
$30 it was $25 at the time for a van load. So if you're doing that twice a week, you're finishing early, unloading your van, loading the bags into the van.
Yeah.
A half hour trip, your cost. So your cost may have been $50 a week.
Yeah.
But when you're starting to factor in your time, that's time that you're not actually able to mow lawns.
Yeah, that's right.
Or time that you can't spend with your kids or do other stuff. So you're like, just adds to the work day.
Yeah, so mulching's better.
Yeah. You do have to cut a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And if you can get frequency to weekly, it definitely helps as well.
Yep. Yeah, now I'm a big proponent of going for weekly cuts. I think in Australia it's not a lot of people that actually agree with me on that, but I'm guessing in New Zealand you've got a few customers you can get up to weekly frequency.
Myself, I've only got a few. The guys who, like, again, I mentioned Alistair, another friend Simon, who work out with the bigger mowers on your lifestyle blocks, which are sort of, again, only 10 minutes that way. I'm right on the edge of town. They, like, where they've got the money, and it's a bit more about keeping up with the Joneses.
Yep.
They can sort of like get that weekly cuts in there to keep them nice.
Yeah.
I think I've got about 7 or 8 that I've got to weekly now.
Nice.
And of course they're 2 weekly now, and over winter they'll probably drop back to 4 weeks, and then as it starts to pick back up, they'll go to 2, and then they'll go weekly, and they actually get the correct cut frequency for the growth.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I've found, if you're going weekly or cutting it as often as you need to, if you're mulching, you're only taking the tip off the grass, so it's always going to look tidy. But if you're doing it at 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and you try mulching, you're bound to get some clumping happening, a lot of clippings, windrows, grass sticking to the wheels, grass getting over the driveway or on the road when you're loading and unloading, all those sorts of things. So how does the Greenworks go with that? Does it do a really good job with the mulching, or better or worse than your push mower?
I haven't really had much. So because we're coming into winter, it would be an unfair sort of thing to say it's good or not.
Fair.
Because the growth is slowing down. Talk to me in spring.
Okay.
And see how it's going. I have found already, I don't know if I've got the correct blades on, so at the moment I'm running some Wrights wavy blades, some mulch blades from Wrights.
Yep, so Gator blades.
I haven't got the Gator blades as such. It's the ones where you've got you come along, it goes up and down, and you got to like it's kind
Okay,
of
yeah.
shaped like that.
Yeah, so
The
they're designed for mulching, those blades. So they're dedicated mulching blades because they're not a high lift. They've actually got that different step so that it cuts more likely to cut the grass again when it's mulching.
Yeah, I have found that you do need to be. I do need to slow down the speed a bit.
Yep.
The forward speed, and then you do have to get the height of cut right when you're trying to mulch at 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, okay.
Depending on the grass type.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, I have found a little bit of windrows, but not too bad.
Yeah, okay.
With the 2 weekly with the push mower, of course, it just jams it up. So I do a bit naughty, find a tree, like a tree, and like just pause the mower underneath it, bump the deck, continue on, and at the end of the day, when you finish that lawn, go back to the blower and spread it all out.
Yeah.
Or if there is some clumps, you might just get the blower and make sure, like, as you're walking around, you're just like, oh, there's a clump of grass, just break it up with the blower, and within like a day or two, they don't know it's there.
So typically with mulching, it's going to take a little bit more time if you have to double cut or if you got to go back and blow a couple of clumps around, those sorts of things. But it's less effort to do that than it is to take the clippings to the tip.
It's also, when you're catching, you've got to stop, pick up a catcher which is full of wet grass, which is heavy. Go back to your vehicle. If you're at the back of the property, go back to your vehicle, tip it in the trailer, tip it in, then go back and start again.
Yeah.
So for a residential, I would almost just like prefer to double cut.
Yeah. And I'm firmly on the side of mulching instead of catching, but I think it's a case of going, well, the pros and the cons change according to what you're doing or time of year or the type of customer. It's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. And I think that it should be one of those things where you do both and you go, okay, well, what works best for a particular job or at that time of year, or does the customer not care, or what works best? What gives you your business the best return?
Yeah, most of my customers, as long as it looks tidy, and I'm getting them used to that slightly higher height of cut, where it looks nicer mulched, don't even care. Don't notice. If there's a few clumps, as I said, you break them up and they're gone within a couple of days.
And I would say most customers, if they really want it to look good, if they move to weekly, then it looks better and you don't need to worry.
Yeah, if they're prepared to go, like, if I get customers who go, oh, can you cut it shorter? It will last longer. It's like, no, it's like that doesn't actually work. You put the grass into stress, it grows faster anyway to compensate because you've taken half of most of its way of supporting itself away from it. So it's got to grows faster to compensate. It's frequency.
Yeah,
definitely. So I'm slowly getting there, and I get the odd customer who goes, "Oh, I cut it short." And I was like, "Well, I'll cut it more often," and then they don't bother about going to cut it short. It's just, do your thing, It's like it's cut.
Yeah, they want cheap rather than the best. It's a good way of determining whether a customer is a high end customer or a low end customer.
Yeah, and I do my weeklies that I get. If they're residential, they get like a Thursday, Friday cut.
Yep.
If they're commercial, they get a Monday cut.
Yeah.
Or even a Sunday if I have to. Because they're weekly, they're prepared to pay for a better service, so they get priority on the time of week as well, which is going to be best for them.
So residentials get it at the end of the week, so it looks good while they're home over the weekend.
Yep.
Commercials get it at the start of the week, so it looks good throughout the week.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so I got one decent commercial which is weekly. So that's every Sunday or Monday, depending on which week it falls, and then the rest of my weeklies are residential, and they get it. They get a cut on Thursday, Friday, and I think I even still try and keep them towards the end of the week when we go to 2 weekly or 4 weekly. They still get that cut near the end of the week, because they're prepared to let me cut it when it's the most work more often.
Yeah.
So they deserve higher priority.
Definitely. So if you were to pick up lifestyle acreage properties, do you think you'd go for a larger battery mower, or do you think you'd make a switch to a petrol mower if you're going to, say, a 48, 52 inch or bigger?
I think I would try and stick with the battery. It would be an outlay to go that way. That's why I kind of went the 32, so I can start to try and get some slightly bigger work, start to save up, get the I'm already back to the 32. I'm already noticing the difference. I was kind of like 4 to 4.5 days work of lawns alone each week. Now I am down to sort of like 3 to 3.5 days of work lawns each week.
So just because you're more efficient?
Yeah, just the bigger mower on those bigger properties.
Nice.
So once weather plays ball, it means I can get more garden work done and start to get on top of more garden work. Yep. So therefore I can make more money. So it may not be paying for itself in lawns as such, like making me heaps more money in lawns, but it's freeing up time.
Yeah, so overall it's helping you to do more work, get more work done.
Yep. And then I would start, so the bank account's already building back up. I think in spring is when I'll start to try and target some slightly bigger properties. I do have to be careful about how big with the battery mower, because it is only an 8 kilowatt.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't sort of like do, if you've got, say, like 2 really big properties, you're going to have to make sure that's not mixed in with other stand-on work that day, so that you can make sure it's charged that day before you go out to do it, because you'll probably drain it. And then that will start to save money. I'd also need a bigger trailer, or a better trailer that can support a higher weight and braked as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I would look at probably like a 52 or a 60 and probably the 24 kilowatt battery. Yep. But you are starting to look at $60,000.
Yeah, I thought it would be up around that.
Yeah.
And that's with the Greenworks. If you go to one of the other, like the Mean Green, or do you have the Gravely EV there?
Yeah, the Gravely EV is here. I think that's about, they don't do a standard though. They've only got the sit down here.
Yeah, okay.
And they are about $60,000 as well for around about that size. The difference with the Gravely is you can buy the, is it the Gravely? Yeah, it is the Gravely. You can buy the batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those batteries aren't cheap though.
Oh, no.
they're a 6K a battery.
But if you need to, you can.
Yes, if you need to, you can. But if
I think they take 4. Do they take 4? I think it's 4 they fit on the machine.
Yeah, you get 4 of them with it. And then you can buy extras that you can charge and literally just drop them in.
Yes. So you can carry backup batteries and keep on going.
Yeah, but I mean, like the Greenworks and the 24 kilowatt, you're looking at 7 to 8 hours of mowing anyway.
Yeah.
Who's going to be sitting on a mower for 7 to 8 hours a day?
That's a lot of work, isn't it?
That's a lot of work, like trimming, driving to jobs. There probably will be some people. I know there is one guy who does the university and the water reservoirs here. Yeah. He's like 10 to 11 hours a day on a mower.
On the mower itself?
On the mower.
Because most people who say they're doing 10, 11, 12-hour days are doing a mix, so they're not on the mower for the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you like 7 to 8 hours of mowing.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're getting to a 60-inch mower, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, that sure is.
So, so and it's, I think I would be probably fine, but again, it is, where would you where would you need the extra battery from the Gravely to cover that? I don't know what the Gravely's runtime is though on those 4 batteries, whether it's the same as say like the 24 kilowatt Greenworks.
So it'll depend on the size of the Gravely as to what the runtime is going to look like. But I think in general they're talking around 5-hour runtime on 4 batteries.
Yeah, so you're probably gonna. So if you want 5-hour runtime, if you want the equivalent runtime, you're going to look at maybe 2 extra batteries at $6,000 a pop. So you're like $60,000 for the mower, or 60 plus, and then you've got an extra $12,000 for 2 extra batteries.
Yeah.
Then you've possibly got the extra charger to charge those 2 extra batteries outside of the mower as well.
Yeah.
To get the same runtime. Or I mean, that sort of price, you might as well, you'd be starting to look at the Greenworks over the Gravely.
Yeah, well, that's another option. And the Greenworks is an interesting one because it also claims around 7 to 8 hour runtime. A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today. But I did a test on the Greenworks here, and one of the features they pointed out is you can buy 2 chargers and you can dock from the front and the back. So if you just dock from the back, then one charger, and it's, I think, 8 to 12 hour charge time. If you dock from the front and the back, then both chargers plugged in at once, it charges the batteries twice as quick.
I thought the front was an ETO, not a charge port. It's a instead of being a PTO, it's an ETO, so you can actually take power off the batteries.
Well, when I did the demo, I was told you can charge from the front and the back. So yeah,
that's interesting. I've never been told that. I do know you can get a supercharger which plugs into the back. So you've got your standard charger, which is like that 8 hours. And then you do have a supercharger which brings it down to 3, and it plugs into the back.
Interesting.
So the front port is what they call an ETO. So you can run, you can buy the 6-bay charger for your smaller batteries. Okay. You can have that plugged into the front of the mower, and that while you're working, that can be actually charged. You can be using the charge from that to then charge your batteries for your hand tools. There is tools that they're looking at coming out, like a blower which attaches to the front, because the Greenworks mowers do have like that hitch receiver on the front. So that's designed for like blowers in the States, like a little plow and a jack as well, and I think there's more tools.
So you're talking about Greenworks that has that ETO out the front, whereas I was talking about Mean Green.
Mean Green, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I think that is interesting to know with the Greenworks that they do that. But yeah, the Mean Green is what I was talking about that has the extra charging port.
Yeah, it's just really expensive though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I got a price for the Mean Green for a 32, and it was going to be $56,000 in New Zealand.
That's a lot extra over what the Greenworks was.
Yeah, so 32-inch. So at the moment, I'm like $1,000 an inch a cut. That's that's nearly $2,000 an inch a cut. That's a lot. Oh, yeah. And it was going to be 10 weeks into the country too.
Yeah, wow.
So no brainer.
Yep.
To go with the Greenworks over the Mean Green. And again, it comes down to the supplier in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
Wasn't was more about like conservation and bits and pieces than actually like someone who knew about lawn mowing and lawn mowing.
Yeah, I've spoken
Work.
with Bruce a couple of times before the Mean Green came to Australia. I spoke to Bruce in New Zealand about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly his focus was on conservation, reducing emissions, and, you know, a lot of the phone call was like, you're not going to be breathing in carbon dioxide.
Yeah. So they were advertising on Facebook, and I commented, it's like, oh, you know, like, oh, it's a bit expensive for the 32 and bits and pieces, you know. And he goes, oh, send us your numbers and I'll work out how much it will save you and bits and pieces. I'm like, yeah, I don't spend petrol. I've got like a whole lot of still batteries, and I'm running battery gear anyway. I don't have a petrol cost, but that's another interesting thing. The numbers that a lot of these battery companies use, they inflate the cost of the petrol quite dramatically, I believe, like, and how much the machines use.
Yeah.
They inflate that cost so that the numbers for what you're saving look better, but they're not true.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And I think one of the factors that they need to make sure they're careful with is using real world figures. So if you talk to an average contractor that's running a petrol zero turn, you'll probably find they're doing somewhere around 100 or 200 hours a year on their zero turn.
Yep.
There are contractors that do 300, 400, 500 hours a year, and I think one or two that I've talked to that might do closer to 1,000 hours a year, but that's very uncommon. And if you do the maths on it, if you're doing 1,000 hours of time on a zero turn in a year, that's most of your workload.
Yeah.
There's probably not a lot of people that do 2,000 hours of workload a year. If you do the maths on it, 2,000 hours of workload a year is basically doing 40 hours a day, or 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah. So they don't use the correct numbers. I think that was many a discussion with myself, Alistair, and Simon about the, like, he was going, well, my ZK doesn't use this much per hour. Like, where are your numbers coming from? How are you working this out? And they and it's not just Greenworks, it's all of the battery companies when it comes to the standards or ride-ons. I think definitely
well, even the battery powered hand tools, like if you're talking Ego and Still and Husky and any of the OPE brands that have got handheld battery tools, same thing. Are they using real world numbers? Are there comparison between battery and petrol real?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the hand tools, I don't even take petrol like cost into it. It's about usability.
Yep.
Less vibrations, less maintenance, but not having to, like, if you're using a chainsaw, like, once a month, you don't have to drain the fuel out of the system. You just plug a battery in and you go. That sort of thing, and the heat from the exhaust, and like if you've got to put it in funny positions to use it. So I think the petrol use almost needs to come out of the equation sometimes when you're looking at your smaller hand tools.
Yeah, I do find it interesting when you see people arguing over those things, and it is worthwhile having a discussion around the cost of running sometimes. But if you're just talking purely cost of running in dollar value, you do miss a lot of the pros and cons that are more important. And pros and cons are a cost of running. Like if you're talking hand-arm vibrations and you're comparing like 2 or 3 different petrol tools for hand-arm vibrations, you're going to find there's significant variation between different petrol tools with the hand-arm vibrations. You go to battery and the significance is a lot less. But there's still, it's worth mentioning, with a whippersnipper, if you've got a motor at the head, at the power head, or at the other end of the whippersnipper, that
Yep.
will make a significant difference to your hand arm vibrations and the balance of the tool. So the other one is the size of the swath. So all those things come into it. When you're talking battery tools, you've reduced your vibrations straight up because you don't have the petrol motor vibrating, but you've still got other potential entry points for vibration that are worth reviewing and going, okay, which of the battery tools is the best choice for that?
Oh, and then you completely throw it out the window when you put a different type of line in it.
Well, if you go from the standard head that comes with a whippersnapper to a speed feed head, my experience has been, and sorry for all the speed feed freaks out there, but the speed feed heads, typically the aftermarket ones, get a lot more vibration in them.
Oh yeah, I use a speed feed myself. So but you're paying. That's that trade off, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you trade off a little bit of vibration for
ease of use.
Ease of use. Yeah, you got a spool of line in your pocket. Like it pings out. You thread it through, tighten it up, and away you're back going again.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's minuscule compared to the difference in vibration from petrol to battery, though, isn't it?
That's right. So there's the pros and cons between petrol and battery. There's so many that can be talked about. The runtime, the vibrations, the exhaust heat, all those different things that come into it that make a massive difference to why you would go battery instead of petrol.
Oh, it's particularly like the exhaust heat's a big one. Like if you're working and trying to get it underneath a trampoline that you can't move, you can do some funny things with how you hold a battery trimmer compared to, I don't think you'd want to do that with a petrol trimmer. Yeah,
well, exhaust heat is just one of the issues there, but also the fumes in your face when you're doing it.
If you're stretching it right out in front of you to get that, you might have the silly little piece in the middle. You can't move the trampoline, but if you try to do that with a petrol trimmer, you're likely to burn yourself. Exhaust fumes right in your face.
Yep. The other one that I find really significant, and most petrol lovers will dispute this and go, that's not significant, is pull starting.
Oh, yeah, I love it. You don't have to.
I've got no problem with pull starting a two-stroke engine, no problem at all. But there are plenty of occasions where the pull start is awkward or outright dangerous. So if you're up a ladder doing some head trimming, and you start it when you're on the ground, then you climb up the ladder and it stalls.
Yeah. And you got to climb back down. I've just never had that issue. So just clip a battery in and away you go. Or back to if you're not doing a lot of hedging work, you got a two-stroke, you got to clean out the fuel system if you've got months between use.
I'll let you on a little tip there. Most people don't clean out the fuel system; they just leave it there.
Yeah, and then they wonder why it's really hard to start.
Typically speaking, it hasn't caused me a lot of drama leaving the fuel in a machine.
Yeah,
but I use high quality fuel, high quality oils. So
it's probably also more for your home users who are will leave it for 6 months, not not 3 or 4 weeks.
So home users, it's definitely a problem, and ethanol-based fuel, it's definitely a problem. So I bought a Stihl, and I can't remember the model number of it, but it's a Stihl multi-tool, and it's a home user version, but I bought it because I wanted to get a hedge trimmer years ago, and I bought it off somebody secondhand, and they'd had trouble with it right from the get-go, and from what I can figure, the main reason they'd had trouble is because they'd left it sit with ethanol fuel in it, and, I had to replace the carby to fix that.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of your fuel you buy from the petrol pumps these days has ethanol in it.
Well, in Australia, you can tell it has to be labelled as E10 if it's got ethanol in it. There are other variations other than E10, but you don't see them around. So it'll say if it's E10. If it's unleaded 91, it doesn't have ethanol in it. 95 or 98 don't have ethanol in them.
Okay, I need to do. Yeah, I've just never bothered about it too much. It's
well, you don't 95. Need to.
Yeah, well, but even with the car, 91 goes in the car, 95 or 98 in the bike, and just whatever you get, doesn't matter if it's got a little bit of ethanol in it because you're using it regularly anyway.
Well, and that's what it comes down to for me. There are vehicles here which are not suitable for ethanol fuel.
Yep.
So if it doesn't say it's suitable for E10, then don't put it in there. And then if it's a vehicle that's going to end up sitting, so if my bike doesn't get run for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, I don't want ethanol fuel sitting in the tank.
Yeah. So when I had the bike at the time, well, back to bikes, I ran, I think it was Gull, it was 98, and I think it did have ethanol in it, but because it was getting used daily, I just didn't bother.
Well, our 98 here does not have ethanol in it.
Yeah,
our 95.
Yeah, I can't remember if I don't buy 98 anymore, so
Yeah.
I don't need it. It's diesel or 91. So,
fair enough.
yeah,
all those things.
I still do use diesel.
Yeah, fair enough. So you're still running the van?
Yes, yeah. I did weigh up an EV, looking at an EV van, but the only thing available round about that $30,000 was going to be a EV Nissan, like, is it 250 or something like that? Too small. Only had like 150 k's range. Not for about the same price as like the MV 350 that I've got.
Okay.
2.5 diesel turbo.
Yep. The model numbers you're referring to, they don't make much sense here in Australia.
Sorry, yeah. It's a Nissan Caravan 2.5. I think it's got similar motor to the Navara.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
And it's a decent size van. I think if you look on my Facebook page, you'll scroll down a little bit, you'll see a photo of it at some point.
Yeah, okay. I'll have a look through.
Yeah, I think that was when I was having to pop back up when I had to work out on my wife's Corolla for 7 weeks. So that was fun.
Yeah, that would make it interesting.
Yeah. Out of a 1.8 litre little Toyota Corolla station wagon for 7 weeks. She's interesting.
That drive you crazy and your wife.
Yeah, she wasn't too much of a fan of it because there's still some grass marks on the roof, grass stains on the roof of it. So, but yeah, the van went down injectors.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they didn't have some of the seals in New Zealand. So
nasty.
Yeah, 7 weeks later, $3,500.
Youch.
Yeah. About that one.
Yeah. No, I ran a Renault Traffic van for a while and then switched over to the Hilux more recently.
Yeah. I did consider a Hilux, but the battery tools, I wanted everything inside.
Fair enough.
All the batteries and everything. And then price-wise as well, there's definitely a Toyota tax.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I bought the Hilux, there was several vehicles I looked at. I looked at a Isuzu D-Max and I looked at a Mitsubishi Triton, BT50. I did not want to look at the Ford Ranger, just not an option. I've had a Ford Ranger before, won't get another one.
Yeah. There's been some transmission issues and bits and pieces, and
the list of issues is mind-boggling. But we won't go into that because I'll get hammered by all of the listeners that love them.
Yeah.
But the vehicles that it came down to for me with the Utes was the Isuzu or the Mitsubishi or the Toyota, and I could have walked onto a car lot with a Mitsubishi and walked back out with one.
Yeah.
The Isuzu, I had to call ahead and give them a week or two. And the Toyota, it was 12-month wait to get a brand new Hilux. So I bought a second-hand Hilux that already had all the kit on it so that I didn't have to go and buy basically a $60,000 vehicle and then spend another $25,000 on it.
Yeah, so I haven't even gone that far. I think my van was 26 second hand. Had 135,000 Ks on the clock, Japanese import.
Yeah.
I spent $1,200 on a roof rack. what else was it? 500, 600 on a tow bar. I spent a 600 on, because it had the Japanese stereo in it, I put a decent Android Auto, Bluetooth Android Auto head unit on then. So that was about 600, then whatever the cost was fitting. So I think that was about 900 all up.
Yeah.
And I've done, I think it's 30,000 Ks on it so far.
Yeah, okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
I do more kilometres than you.
Yeah. Well, most of my lawns are all within 10 minutes drive.
Mine used to be. But,
yeah.
Not
yeah,
now.
once you start getting bigger jobs and stuff, you do have a bigger, more further distance to get to them.
I do. I'm travelling further, but once I get to the job, I'm there for the whole day.
Yeah. Whereas I'm, I think, so like 10 to 14 lawns a day. But they're all within 10 minutes drive from home.
Nice.
So, yeah, it works when you got kids. So I can shorten the day up, go pick kids up, or or if a lawn's too wet, I can go back to that lawn the next day, because I don't have to worry about I'm not in your area for like 2 weeks again.
Yeah, that is a huge benefit of having good route density, but I know it's also a point of laziness for me. I found several times I was like, oh, you know what? I've got to 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the afternoon. I've got 2 jobs left. I'm just going to put them on tomorrow's list.
I haven't really been that bad unless it's been wet, and then I'm like, I will do as many jobs as I can without getting too wet until I'm sick of getting wet.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, they can just go the next day, and we'll go there.
Look, here it's a case of either too wet, which probably as frequent as too hot. So if it gets up over 35 degrees, even 32 degrees, if it's really high humidity, is just horrible. But if it's over 35 or close to 40 degrees and get to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like, oh man, I can't keep doing this.
Nah, that's a pack up and go home. Like, even 30 degrees is hot enough.
Yeah.
I think that's what we get to, maybe 32. Fairly decent humidity as well, because we're where the Waikato is in the valley. But my rechargeable fridge freezer comes in handy in summer.
I bet.
So, yeah, I should say, Quiet Lawn spent a little bit of money coming into summer this year. And that was well worth it. Ice blocks, water, just cold water, cold squincher in the back of the van the whole time.
Yeah, well, I'm still getting some things set up on my Hilux at the moment, about to go away for a 3 weeks trip.
Yeah.
And what I was working on before I started talking to you was trying to get solar panel fitted on the roof so that it keeps the battery charged and the fridge cold.
Yeah. I haven't gone down that route on the van yet. It's maybe long term.
Yeah.
We did buy a solar panel that I think I probably will look at next summer for the fridge. But it just gets because we go away camping and it just gets sat on the side in the sun. Just move it around to face the sun But our camping's set up a big canvas tent and stay there for like 10 days.
Well, if you got a decent solar panel set up on your van, you could run a nice battery system in there and be able to recharge your batteries while you're working. Yeah,
I looked at that, but I decided to invest in
more batteries,
and just charge at home. Because by the time I've got panels, battery, I was going to be up, well over what it was just to buy like 3 more batteries or 4 more batteries, and another charger for home.
Yeah.
And now that I've got the big mower, then I don't actually have that issue either too much now. I'm not running out of batteries during the day.
Fair enough. Makes a big difference. I think when you talk about having more batteries, it also means you've got a longer amount of time between when you have to start replacing batteries because of their age too.
Yeah, I'm still charging now I'm not with the Big Miller. But before I purchased that, I was running through 15 batteries a day.
Yeah.
So some of the batteries were actually getting 2 charge cycles a day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're still racking up the charge cycles on those batteries.
But keep in mind, when I started with batteries, I bought 2 batteries, and on my biggest day, I was doing a cemetery, and I would take a charger with me, and I would just cycle those 2 batteries through the charger. I'd get 2 hours per battery on the whippersnipper, and I would be doing 10 hours of whipping. So that's like 5 cycles per battery.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what sort of cycles they sort of put on the Husky batteries?
I think they're talking 1,000 cycles or somewhere around there.
So it's similar to the Stihl ones. They say 1,200 cycles, and they still sort of like guarantee 80%.
I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's around the 1,000 cycle mark.
Yeah, which is about what you'd expect. You're still running the same cells in those batteries. But if you pull apart a Husky battery and a Stihl battery, the cells are pretty much the same inside.
Oh, yeah. I'd say they probably all come from Samsung. Maybe not.
yeah, or one of the other brands. And it's just the BMS that's a bit different.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, that's something I noticed with that when I first started. Those batteries, I think I did about 2-3 years on those batteries, and I was starting to notice a bit of loss of runtime.
Yeah, you would, because it was 2-3 years. How often were you doing those?
Well, that particular job I was doing weekly through summer, so it was getting an absolute hammering, sort of around
that's a lot of charge cycles
per battery.
Once a week, that's a lot.
I was working 5 days a week, but only doing that job 1 day a week. So the other days, the batteries would probably get 2 cycles in a day, maybe.
Yeah, so that's you probably hit that 1,000 charge cycles pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing, because I'm generally doing 1 charge cycle a day.
Yep.
You're looking at around about 5 years.
Yeah, makes sense.
So going back to the cost benefit, 5 years per battery for the amount of fuel you use, it starts to work out.
Yeah. But also buying 15 batteries from Stihl adds up in cost too.
So I didn't actually buy 15 in one hit. I started with 8 and 3 charges, and then I went as I got more and more work, because I started with 3 lawns, so I was fine. And as I got more work, I'd go through, and it's like, okay, I'm maxing out my batteries today. I'm having to go back charge.
Yep, so you go and buy another battery.
Yeah, I'd go buy another battery. Okay, I'm maxing out my batteries now. I'll go buy another battery.
And then you get another charger.
Yeah, I then bought the 4-bay charger. So at the start I had 300 chargers. Now I've got 2 300s and 2 304s. Okay. So they're the 70-minute chargers. And the last lot I actually managed to get, I had 11 batteries, and then I managed to pick up a deal of someone who had bought some battery gear, but he had run into a little bit of financial strife with his business and needed some money for repairing his ute. So I picked up a 90, an FSA 90, the trimmer.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
The Stihl trimmer, 2 batteries and a 4-bay charger for like $700.
So what do you think of the FSA 90? Because I tested that back in 2018.
I sold it. So I didn't even use it. I tested it to make sure it worked. And I was like, that felt really front heavy because the motor's like this on the end. And it wasn't very well balanced, so I just sold it.
That was what I tested when I tested Stihl, and that's why I didn't buy Stihl.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's really unbalanced because there's no... All the weight is right down the end, and you've just got the battery weight up by your arm, and that's it. So real front heavy, crap head on it. The guard's really hard to just a ugly unit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it certainly didn't do any favors for me.
no, I think if that was the only trimmer that was available, I would have been looking elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
But there is some more. There's actually some more still units coming out now. There's KMA 120. There's a 200 coming out too.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, so and the 120 and the 200, they're actually a shorter body.
Yeah. Okay.
So KMA 130 is like long and skinny. There's shorter, bigger that way. So a bit more balance in what's like the back end, like the battery's not so far back.
Yeah.
So I think the balance is a little bit better on them.
Yeah, okay.
It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, big air filter on the 200 too.
Nice. Yeah. Well, when I was talking to Still, they were talking about the air filters. I think they started introducing some significant air filtration on the chainsaw, the 300.
Yeah, the 300 actually has a proper air filter in it. The KMA 135 basically has like a little screen filter on the bottom that can be pulled off and sort of like cleaned. It's a real rudimentary air filter. It's like a fine mesh, whereas the 300 actually has your proper air filter in it. But then you've also you start looking at the chainsaws. To get the proper power out of the 300, you need to buy the $700 and something battery too.
Yeah, the 500S or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, AP500S. Which changes. It's actually gone to. I think I spoke to you about this last time. You've gone from the round cells to your flat pouches.
Yep.
So you've got the same weight as the AP300S.
Yeah.
But you go from 289 watt hours to 330 or 360. It's not a massive amount. But it also has built-in Bluetooth connectivity for your Still Connect as well.
Yeah, okay.
And
I think with those style batteries, you're probably getting more cycles on the battery than the 300 too.
Yeah, 2,500 or 2,400. That
sounds about right.
Yeah, so you go from 1,200 to 2,400. And they do seem to not be so affected by heat as well.
Yeah.
So on a hot day, most everyone who uses batteries, doesn't matter whatever brand it is, was probably come across this, like needing to cool the battery before you charge it. And particularly if you've been working hard. Yeah. And then there's also the fact you're probably losing a lot of your watt hours to heat in a hot day.
Yes.
Yep.
Heat and cold will both do that.
Yeah. It's not as bad of cold, but the heat, you notice it, and that those batteries are hot.
Yeah.
When they come out of the mower, or the if you've been using the line trimmer on full snot, they are warm.
So I find heat and cold have the opposite effect in some ways. So they both shorten runtime, but heat, your runtime shortens as the battery heats up.
Yep.
Whereas cold, the runtime is shorter whilst it's cold, but as the battery warms up, it extends a bit at the end.
Yeah, I have noticed that a little bit. Like those first one or two batteries in the morning, when you're sort of a couple of degrees, or maybe 5-6 degrees, they just don't seem to last as long. You're like, why is this one flat already? What's going on? And
I've noticed it because I'll do a fairly early start in the morning, and first thing I do is get on the blower to do some leaf cleanups. And if I'm doing that at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it's 1 or 2 degrees.
Oh yeah, and
or sub-zero. But you just see the battery. It starts with full and it drops to almost half as you pull the trigger, and it's like, oh, it's cold. It's affecting the battery.
And it's also probably one of your highest drain devices as well, like your highest drain tools as well. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
You can smoke a battery real fast on
With
the
a blower. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of times I've cleaned the van and like just I don't feel like getting the towel out, just get the blower out and blow it off. And it's like 5-10 minutes, like that battery it's flat and it is hot.
Yep.
You're like, we'll just sit you over there for a little while and I won't even bother putting you on the charger. So yeah, been there, done that a few times.
Yeah, so one of the things, going back to what brought that up, talking about the AP500S, having the pouches instead of the round cells in them, and we're starting to compare with some of the technology they've had in radio-controlled battery systems. Yep. So when you're talking radio-controlled planes and cars and helicopters, those sorts of things, they run lithium polymers, which pouch cells are typically a polymer combination.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. And it's basically what's in your phone too, as well. A lot of the new phones, isn't it? It's like it's heading along that line.
Yep.
To get that that small flat form factor.
Yeah, but what I found with radio controlled gear, some of the batteries will have, like I think your older batteries, your phone batteries, and your old round cells. They typically will have a discharge rating of 1C.
Mm-hmm.
And 1C means you can discharge the cell over an hour, basically. So if you charge it over an hour, that's charging at 1C. If you discharge it over an hour, that's discharging at 1C. If you take some of the radio control gear, they are rated to be able to discharge them in 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
And so when you're taking a round cell, like your typical lithium-ion round cell, in your normal batteries in your Still or your Husky Ego, and you pull the trigger on the blower and you're like, oh, I can drain that battery in 10, 15 minutes, you're potentially damaging those sort of cells. Whereas the cells that are made to handle that discharge rate, like your pouch cells, flat cells, then you're still potentially doing some damage, but a lot less because they're made to be discharged at somewhere around 15 to 20 C.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, and that's probably why they use them in the new chainsaw, because it can discharge faster and so that's where you can actually get the true power out of the chainsaw. Like you don't actually get the power out of it if you run the 300S in it. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is when you're talking pouch cells instead of round cells and comparing batteries and the way they work. If you have a little thin copper line that's 1 millimeter thick coming out of a battery, and that's going from the battery to the tool, all of that current has to go through that little 1 millimeter thin line.
Right. Yep.
If you have, instead of one line that's 1 millimeter thick, you go up to a line that's 6 millimeters thick, then you can transfer a lot more current. If you put two cells beside each other, so you run cells in parallel, which are, even the round cells will do this, right? But you run more cells in parallel, your bigger amp hour batteries, so you go from your 200 to your 300 battery and your 300S, you're increasing the amount of cells in parallel, which means you can do a higher current draw. And what that means is that as you draw higher current when you're running a blower or a chainsaw or something along those lines, it allows for more efficient transfer of power from each of the cells to the tool.
Right. Yep.
So whereas the smaller battery on the blower or your mower or your chainsaw, you'll see battery sag really quickly because it's trying to drag a lot of current out of a really small battery. And so it'll look like it's charged full. You pull the trigger on your blower and all of a sudden it drops to half. You let it go and give it 30 seconds to cool down, and then you pull the trigger again and it's back up to full and it'll drop quickly because of the current draw. If you run that same battery on a lightweight tool that's not drawing much current, it'll run for quite a long time and you won't get the battery sag. So you go to the bigger battery, like we're talking for the chainsaw, it can handle the current draw that the chainsaw needs.
Yep.
And that means you don't get the sag from the battery from really high current draw because it's delivering that load more efficiently from one cell to the next through to the tool.
Yeah.
And the pouch cells, do allow for more efficient current transfer than a round cell.
Yeah, and so that's where, like your line trimmer or something like that, if you've used the battery, you put it down for, it's gone flat, you put it down for like 5-10 minutes,
Pick it back up.
like pick it back up, chuck it back in the tool, and you might get a little bit of extra runtime out of it.
Often quite a lot.
Yeah. Even though you would actually run it to the point where it had gone flat. Yeah, because it's come back up.
I've noticed this with the Ego Select Cut mower, and I'm sure you'd find the same with the RMA. What do you say? It is 510.
510. Yeah.
So with the Ego Select Cut, it comes with a 10 amp or 2 10 amp batteries in the kit that I got.
Yep.
And the 10 amp battery is made for the mower. So if you put the 10 amp battery on your whippersnipper or your blower, it's too heavy, but it delivers a really good current rate.
Yeah.
But if you take the 5 amp battery that came with the whip or the blower and you chuck it on the mower, it's got half the amount of cells, but it's still 56 volts. So it's trying to draw all that current from half the number of cells. And I can literally chuck that in, particularly at the moment when the weather's a little bit cold, and it goes from full charge down to almost half just by pulling the trigger.
Right. Yeah. See, so I've never, all my batteries are AP300Ss.
Yep.
So I've never had the smaller batteries and tried to run those in the mower.
Yeah.
So all the batteries have been run at the 300S. I think it was just like an ease things, like, right, that battery can work in everything.
Yeah,
so
and I've done the same with the Husky gear that I've got, but with the Ego gear, because I've got a couple of 5s, I've got a 7.5, and I've got a 10 amp battery. So it's interesting to do the comparison with the different sizes there. But it becomes really obvious that the smaller batteries can't handle the current draw that the big batteries can handle.
Yeah, I think you'd probably find the same if you went to like a 100 or a 200 and you tried to put those in the mower. You're not going to get a lot out of them.
Yeah,
they're really just designed for the hedge trimmer.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think they're getting out of the 100s even as
Probably.
well. It's just going to be 200s, and that's your sort of like lightest battery, and it's designed for your sprayer, your hedge trimmer, and maybe your pulse or that's not doing like big thick branches.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.